Chapter 9. Time Scales and Rates of Growth. This is a clear manuscript written for the most part in black nib pen on 6 sides of 3 unlined sheets that Tolkien lettered, and red ballpoint pen, A to F, and clipped together. Some corrections and additions were made by Tolkien in red and blue ballpoint pen and in pencil. It dates from c. 1959. For similar applications of the greatly increased rate of sun years to Valiant years of 144 to 1 to specific characters in the Legendarium, see the text presented here as Chaps 10, Difficulties in Chronology, 11, Aging of Elves, and 18, Elvish Ages and Numenorian. Time Scales and Rates of Growth. 1 Valiant year of aging equals 144 years, mortal man years. In original Quendian, 1 Valiant year of aging is 144 mortal man years, and later 25 or 36 Valiant years of aging is 100 mortal man years. The Quendian rate originally corresponded to the Valiant, and it so remained in the Mon. But by each act or choice, which as it were allied the Quendi, or any group of them more closely with Arda Mard, the rate of growth became quicker, for the tendency towards physical decay was increased. It is said that the Avari quickened to 100 to 1 as soon as the Eldar had departed, that the Nondor did likewise as soon as they forsook the march, that the Sindar did so also when they chose to remain on the western shores, and that finally the exiled Noldor were quickened in the same way as soon as they left Aman, or rather as soon as the doom of Mondros was spoken and they persisted in their rebellion. Footnote 1. Tolkien at some later point wrote in the margin against this paragraph in red ballpoint pen, "No quickening," and apparently at the same time wrote in the space between the initial table and the first paragraph, "All this needs revision to duodecimal," also in red ballpoint pen. This indicates that Tolkien had decided that the Quendian growth rate ought not, in fact, as here, generally increase outside of Aman from 144 duodecimal to 100 decimal. End footnote. In all the earlier legends, therefore, the rate 100 to 1 can be used to determine approximately the age of any of the Eldar in human terms, except while they were in Aman, where it was 144 to 1. It is said that after the fall of Sauron and the beginning of the Fourth Age and the dominion of men, those of the elves who still lingered in Middle-earth were again quickened to a rate of about 72 to 1, or in these latter days to 48 to 1. Footnote 2. There is no indication in the text of just when these latter days are meant to be. End footnote. Some calculations. It will be seen that the dates given in The Lord of the Rings fit well with these rates, save in 2 points. The rate of the half-elven that chose to join the Quendi was evidently in Middle-earth 100 to 1. For those who joined men, a special rate of growth was established, approximately 3 to 1, though this diminished, but was in Aragorn almost restored. He was 5 to 2. Footnote 3. As will be seen below, at the time of writing Tolkien still regarded Aragorn as having died at age 190, not as later 210. End footnote. Elrond. He was born 58 sun years before the end of the First Age in the overthrow of Morgoth. Footnote 4. In the c. 1951-2 Tale of Years as amended, Elrond and Elros are said to have been born in YS 532, XI 348, which makes him 58, as here, when the First Age ended in YS 590, XI 346. End footnote. He was born in Middle-earth, and so inherited from the beginning the rate 100 to 1. He lived then, through the Second Age of Middle-earth, 3,441 years. He wedded Celebrion in 100 of the Third Age, it is said. Footnote 5. This is a year given in Appendix B in the first edition 1955 of The Return of the King. This was changed to 109 in the second edition 1966. End footnote. and left Middle Earth at the end of the Third Age, 3021. He said that in the last alliance, 3430 of the Second Age, he was the Herald of Gil-galad. Footnote 6, cf. LR 243. End footnote. We see, therefore, that when he left Middle Earth, he was 58 plus 3,441 plus 3,021 years old equals 6,520. He was then, in human terms, just over 65 and still in full vigor. Footnote 7. The words "and still at full vigor" were a later addition in red ballpoint pen. End footnote. At the last alliance, he was 58 plus 3,430 equals 3,488 divided by 100 equals nearly 35. At his wedding, he was 58 plus 3,441 plus 100 equals 3,599 divided by 100 equals 36. Celebrian was born, it seems, early in the Second Age, when Galadriel refused to return to Air Sea and pass over the mountains, probably 300 of the Second Age. At her wedding with Elrond, therefore, she would be 3,441 minus 300 plus 100 equals 3,241 years old, or 32, a reasonable age, and further to be explained by the fact that her marriage was postponed by the War of the Last Alliance and the preceding troubles in Eriador. At her departure from Middle-earth in 2509 of the Third Age, she was 3,141 plus 2,509 equals 5,650 years old, or 56. Footnote 8. Both Appendix A and B to The Lord of the Rings say that while Celebrian was attacked by orcs and poisoned in 2509 of the Third Age, she departed overseas in 2510 of the Third Age. LR 1043, 1087. End footnote. Arwen. She was born, according to LR, in 241 of the Third Age. She was married to Aragorn in 3019 of the Third Age. She was then 2,778 years old, or in human terms, nearly 28. This, in Elvish terms, is a very suitable age. Her wedding was in any case inevitably postponed by the War of the Ring and the preceding troubles. Also in 2951, when Aragorn first met her, she was 2,710, or 27, whereas he was then 20. He had yet to overtake her, which in this case was desirable, since she was to become mortal in his degree. In 2980, when they plighted their troth in Lorien, she was very little older, but he was 49. Footnote 9. Tolkien subsequently penciled in, but did not actually adopt here, alterations of various dates and consequent ages for Arwen, changes that in part anticipate the scheme adopted in Chapter 11, Aging of Elves, below, thus suggesting that Arwen be born in 341 of the Third Age, and so 2,678 sun years old, equals 27 age years at her marriage to Aragorn in 3019 of the Third Age, that she was 2,610, or 26, when she met Aragorn in 2951 of the Third Age. Footnote. Now Aragorn was born in 2931 of the Third Age, but lived until 100 of the Fourth Age, and was then of full age, but not yet becoming senile. His years were then 190. Footnote 10. In the first edition, 1955, of Return of the King Appendix B, Aragorn, born March 1st, 2931, was said to have died on March 1st, 1521, thus aged exactly 190 years as here. In the second edition, 1966, the year was altered to 1541, with Aragorn thus departing precisely at the age of 210, which, it may be noted, is precisely 3 times 70, cf. Psalm 89, 90, verse 10, the days of our life are 70 years, or perhaps 80 if we are strong. End footnote. He was the last of the Númenóreans, and his span was equal to the kings of men of old, as it said, thrice that of ordinary men. Actually, his rate was probably rather 5 to 2 than 3 to 1, so that he was at his wedding in 3019 of the Third Age, in years 88, in age 35, and at death in years 190 and age 75. The full Numenorian rate will make him 29 at his wedding and 63 at death. Footnote 11. As with Arwen's ages, Tolkien subsequently penciled in, but did not adopt, suggested changes, in this case to Aragorn's rate of growth and consequent normal human equivalent ages, and similarly in part anticipating the scheme adopted in Chapter 11, Aging of Elves, below. In a margin against this paragraph, Tolkien wrote, Aragorn grew up to adulthood in the normal rate. He was adult at 20. He then endured a Numenorian rate of 3 to 1. So when 49 in sun years, he was 20 plus 29 thirds equals about 30 in fact. Tolkien then calculated Aragorn's ages on this 3 to 1 basis so that he was 20 plus 68 thirds equals 43 at his wedding in 3019 of the third age, and 20 plus 170 thirds equals 77 at his death in 100 of the fourth age. End footnote. It would appear that the grace accorded to the Numenorians was like that of Aman. It did not alter the human rate of growth to maturity, but postponed the decay of old age after that for a long while, until one knew inwardly, by a motion of the Fea, that the time had come to relinquish life in this world voluntarily. Footnote 12. Tolkien elaborates on this matter in Chaps 11, Lives of the Numenorians, and 12, The Aging of Numenorians in Part 3 of this book. End footnote. If one did not do so, but clung to life, senility would soon arise. If Aragorn had yielded to Arwen's entreaties, he would have become decrepit, at least in body, very soon. Galadriel. She was born in Aman. At the exile she was young and eager, just at or upon the threshold of maturity, probably in age about 20. She must therefore have been in years about 20 times 144 equals 2,880. She became acquainted with Celeborn, a Sindarin prince and kinsman of Thingol in Beleriand. But there were few marriages or childbirths among the Eldar during the war with Angband, which though it occupied 590 years. Footnote 13. When the c. 1950-1 Grey Annals, the Siege of Angband is said to have begun in YS 60 and to have been broken in YS 455, Exite 3952. End footnote. Was to the Eldar in aging time only a matter of some 6-year equivalents. She probably married Celeborn soon after the overthrow of Morgoth, and when she, it appears because of love for Celeborn, who would not leave Middle-earth yet, declined to return west to Erisea. Asterisk. There may have been also an element of pride in her decision, for she was a princess of the Noldor who had lived in Aman itself. Erisea seemed only a second best. End footnote. They passed together over the mountains of Lune into Eriador. Footnote 14. For the problematic question of the history of Galadriel and Celeborn in Tolkien's writings, before, within, and after the publication of The Lord of the Rings, see Christopher Tolkien's summary at UT 228 FF. The situation portrayed here agrees with what little is said of the matter in Appendix B, LR 1082, though the account here ascribes motive to Galadriel that Appendix B does not state explicitly both love and pride. End footnote. She was then about 26 in age, for the years in Beleriand had been at the aging rate of 100 to 1. In 300 of the Second Age, or thereabout, 3 life years later, she bore Celebrion in Eriador. She was then about 29. She lived through all the remainder of the Second Age to 3,441 of the Second Age and left Middle-earth in 3021 of the Third Age. She was thus, at the time, in life years 20 plus 3,441 plus 3,021 all over 100 equals 20 plus 70.5 or 90.5 years in age. Footnote 15. Tolkien has made a mathematical error here. 3,441 plus 3,021 equals 6,462 divided by 100 equals 64.62 plus 20 equals 84.62 life years. and footnote. And thus in elven terms, according to the time in which the fading of the Quendi was approaching, now passing the prime of her Heroa. As can be seen, these calculations show that the events and dates of LR are well fitted to elvish nature and are evidently in the main correctly reported, but there are 2 points in which error appears, probably of scribal origin. It is stated in the Tale of Years that Elrond married Celebrian in 100 of the Third Age, and that his twin sons, Elladan and Elrohir, were born in 139 of the Third Age and Arwen in 241 of the Third Age. This must be erroneous, for in 139 of the Third Age, only 39 years were in aging terms of the Eldar and the half-elven. 2/5 of a year had passed since Elrond's wedding. This was impossible. Footnote 16. Tolkien here is apparently regarding the period of gestation as equal to 1 life year in Middle-earth, as see 100 Loar, but see the later marginal note presented near the end of this text, in which he corrects this to 8 Loar. It remains, though, that even after the 1966 revisions to Appendix B, in which Elrond and Celebrian wed in 109 of the Third Age, and the twins are born in 130, 21 Loar elapsed between the events. And footnote. Also, in 241 of the Third Age, only 102 years had passed since the birth of the twins, which is not much more than a year of aging time, and though not impossible, is according to elvish nature and behavior entirely improbable, especially after the birth of twins and in the begetting and bearing of a special child of high excellence. It is thus probable that 100 and 241 are errors for 10 and 341, for these are in the circumstances easy errors to make, and it will be observed that if 10 and 341 are substituted, the entries, i.e. in the published Tale of Years in Appendix B, are not displaced from their present position. With these emendations, we shall see that Celebrian and Elrond were at their wedding 90 years, or less than 1 life year, younger than as stated. This is of no great concern, but the birth of the twins was 129 years later, or 1.29 life years, which is about a year and 4 months, which is in elven terms very probable. The birth of Arwen was then 202 years later again, or about 2 life years. This is possible, though sooner than would be expected. Asterisk. It is thus impossible that 241 is an error not for 341 but for 421, an even more likely error to have occurred, except that the next following entry is for 420. In that case, about 2.8 life years would have intervened between the births, which is even more probable. And asterisk. No more children were born to Elrond, though Celebrian did not leave Middle-earth until 2509, when she was in years about 5,650, or about 56.5 life years. This is no doubt related to the birth of twins, and still more to the fact that Arwen was a special child of great powers and beauty. In later marginal notes in blue ballpoint pen against the 2 paragraphs beginning at "This must be erroneous," he reconsidered the changes proposed in them. Number for child growth, including time in the womb, to maturity was at rate 10:1. Gestation took 8 years, equals 96 months. 139 of the Third Age is therefore quite possible, but the resting and aging time of parents was at the 100:1 rate, so 200 years should intervene. SC. The conception of Elladan and Elrohir should be in 131, born 139. Arwen, begotten 333, born 341 after 194, were nearly 2 life years of rest. Although Tolkien they later changed the birth year of Elladan and Elrohir to 130 in the second edition, 1966, of LR Appendix B, he, in the event, made no change to that of Arwen.